All right, Rabosai, good morning, a good Chodesh, zechus Barak Hashem, to be able to begin Adar Beis. Baruch Hashem with all of you this morning. Begin by thanking, I apologize for my voice. I'm sorry, try our best, Eretz Hashem. So thank you to all of our sponsors for this morning. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for Adar Beis, those mishpachos who sponsor all of the shiurim and drashos for the entire month. We thank the Schwarzbaum family for dedicating all the shiurim and drashos in memory of Rabbi Aaron Schwarzbaum, Aharon Yosef ben Meir, Leah Sol, in the zechus of her daughter Ilana Bas Esther's successful surgery and complete refuah sheleima, and for the safe return of all of our hostages. Maia Hoffman, in memory of her father Reuven ben Emanuel, and in the merit of the hatzlacha, health and joy for her entire family. So beautiful, Shulamit, Avraham, Mariasha Tzivia, Barak Raphael, and Dora. Beautiful. Our week of learning sponsors today, Paul and Kathy Pollack in the zechus refuah sheleima for Mr. Jack Levy, Yaakov ben Etta Leah, who is undergoing surgery, Ira Miriam Grossman, in celebration of their first anniversary of making aliyah. Incredible. Michael Turniansky, in memory of his brother Alan Turniansky, Avram Yitzchok ben Shimon Yaakov. We hope that in the merit, and of course, again, we dedicate our learning in the Ilui Nishmas Major, Amishar ben David, who fell in battle defending Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisroel. Our pastries are sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eric Schaefer. Beautiful. Again, in honor of, does he know that he's doing a second week in a row? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, got it. I thought maybe he got his credit card on file and that's it. Once that happens, all right. Yeah, they're also dedicating the social hall, by the way. It's So in pastry sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eric Schaefer, dedicated in honor of Eric's mother, Rus Bas Avram, who imbues her children and grandchildren with Yira Shamayim, Avas Hashem, and teaches them Gemilas Chasodim and Lashon Hatov. Wow. Absolutely beautiful. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah. The families will have a neshama. We shall all be zochem Eretz Hashem to be able to appreciate our mothers as much as Eric does his. And halabai Eretz Hashem, it should be a beautiful month truly a mishenichnas adar marbin b'simcha, both on a personal level and as well as for all of Klal Yisrael. And I want to give a special welcome back to Sammy Asterson. I didn't give him a welcome back on Friday, but I did not welcome him back on Friday. Right, so welcome. You were a couple of minutes late. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just saying. Yeah, I can't stop if I stop in the middle, I'm gonna embarrass you, right? Like I did just now, right? So a very special welcome for those of you who don't know. Sammy spent the last couple of weeks in Eretz Yisroel using his professional skill set as a physical therapist, being able to help those injured in battle, soldiers returning from battle. There was actually a beautiful news clip, which I'm going to post on the Daf Yomi chat a little bit later today, highlighting some of Sammy's work. It's absolutely incredible. So Sammy, on behalf of the entire shir, first of all, tremendous source of nachas and halavai. Your love for Am Yisrael, your commitment to Am Yisrael and to Eretz Yisrael, sheleima be a zechus for your mishpacha for many years to come. All right, so with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Yud Aleph 11. We are picking up in Meir Hashem at the Mishnah. Mishnah says as follows: 11a, Mishnah. So it says the Mishnah, Ra Osan Rotzin Achametz. If you did not get to the Mishnah yesterday, that is not my problem. Right? Chevra, come on. Daf Yomi is not about spoon feeding. What do you know? You saw, come on. If someone were to ask you, when I was yesterday, where are we starting on Sunday? Where's Silver going to start? What would you say? Right? Mishnah. No, you would not say 10. Maish, you weren't here yesterday. All right, I'm just saying. Right. Maish, you are off. You are off today. I'm telling you. It's a 10b. You would have said the Mishnah, 11a. That's where we start. So Chevra, if you end off earlier than the Mishnah, what's your avoda? Your avoda is a little homework. That's it. Come on. Says the Mishnah. Ra osan ratzin achar Metziah. So let's say now watch this. Very interesting case here. So let's say, for argument's sake, I'm standing by my field. And what happens? I see Reuven and Shimon by my field, and they're going ahead and they are running after a lost object. Or achar tzvi shavar, we'll say tzvi shavar means an injured deer. Meaning the idea over here is injured deer, meaning it can't run fast, and therefore there is a strong possibility of them being able to overtake it. Achar gozlos shaloparcho, or after birds that have not yet begun to fly. V'amar, so we'll say, so just you appreciate like the image over here. Right? So I'm standing by my field. Okay? These items do not belong to me. Right? So there is a lame deer hobbling across my field. There are pigeons that have not yet begun to fly that are walking across my field. They're in my field, and I see Reuven and Shimon now running into my field to capture these items. These items are hefker, and therefore again Reuven and Shimon have the right to capture them. As I see this, I say to myself, you know what? Zachsa li sadai. Let my field acquire these items on my behalf. So I figure I'm in a chaparine, right? I'm no different than these guys, right? At the end of the day, again, if they could acquire it because it's hefker, I want to acquire it as well with my chatzar. So what's halacha? Zachsalo. The halacha is, we'll say, works. It works. Ultimately, again, my field has the ability to acquire these items on my behalf. However, so we'll say, so again, we'll see what the chiddush is over here. At first glance, this doesn't look like too much of a chiddush, right? What is the Mishnah teaching me? What is the Mishnah teaching me? Kinyan chatzar. Okay, then a chatzar is kona. Okay, so fine, we'll see what the chiddush is. Hayat tzvi rats kidarko. Oshaya gozlos mafrichen. Bamar zach sili sadai. Lo amar klum. However, we'll say same case. I'm standing by my field. Reuven and Shimon are running after. Right, or for that matter, even if they're not running after, right? But ultimately, there is a deer sprinting through my field, or there are birds that have indeed begun to learn to fly, that are fluttering through my field, and I say, Zachsli Sadai, let my field acquire these animals on my behalf, then what's the halacha? Lo amar klum. So we'll say, so again, you see the simple, what's the simple distinction? The simple distinction is, remember again, in case one, what's happening over here? They're injured. So because they're injured or can't fly, therefore by definition, there's a certain level of immobility that exists that almost allows chatzar to act. In case number two, these deer, right, or the birds, they're just flying through. So because they're just flying through, there's no ability for kinyan chatzar to be able to go ahead and truly acquire. All right, so we'll say so fine. Now let's analyze. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. We'll say really interesting case. So Bahu Sha'omid B'tzad Tzadeu. So we'll say, here we go. So here we go. So comes along Rabbi Yehuda, says the name of Shmuel. Says Rabbi the name of Shmuel that when does this work? Now, also remember, we're referencing case number one. Case number one, just one more time. I'm standing by my field, and what do I see in my field? I see a crippled deer, or birds that don't yet know how to fly, right? And therefore, what's happening? Reuven and Shimon are running in, trying to scoop up those animals for themselves, okay? I say in that moment, my chatzar should acquire this, and Mishnah says it works. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, and qualifies this ruling in a very important way. It says it works. When does it work? When does it work? If ultimately, again, you are standing by the side of your field. In other words, you have to be standing by the side of your field in order to activate the kinyan chatzar. Now, I will say, here's what's interesting about this. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, before we get to Rashi, I don't understand, why do I have to be standing by the side of my field? But say, kinyan chatzar works whether or not I'm standing by the side of my field. So why do I have to be there? Rabbi say a chatzar of a person could acquire on their behalf even without their knowledge. In other words, we have this concept in halacha. We found it many times where, again, if I have a chatzar, someone throws something into my chatzar, right? My chatzar could acquire on my behalf even without my knowledge. So if chatzar could acquire without my knowledge, then why do I have to be standing by the side of my chatzar in order for the chatzar to go ahead and acquire? In order for the chatzar to go ahead and acquire the crippled deer or the pigeons that can't fly, I will say, by the way, I'll just mention just as an aside, right? What's the paradigmatic example of chatzar kana shalomi daito? When you think about that, get. You redeemed yourself. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Get. Get is the paradigm. Now, we're going to come back to get in just a little bit. Even though get is the paradigm, even though the truth is we're going to see get's not really a good paradigm, because remember, again, a get could be given how? Even bal karacha, even against their will. But again, get. I would say it's interesting to think about this concept that a chatzar could be klona shalomi das, and I think it's part of a theme that we saw come up a number of times. We saw it come up in Chasidus on Thursday night. We saw it come up on Daf on Friday morning. The metaphorical, or perhaps the Musar Haskell meaning of Chatzar Kona Shulamit, I will say is, you could have your Chatzar, someone throws into your Chatzar, something into your Chatzar, you're not even aware of it, yet your Chatzar acquires it. I will say, a lot of times in life, there are things which leave an impact on us, even if we're not fully aware, fully cognizant, or even fully willing to absorb them. Whatever your chutzner absorbs, so like this happens all the time in life. I allow myself to be influenced by this, exposed to this, experience this. And again, I go through life thinking that it's not going to impact me. The Gemara says, Chatzar kana shelo midaito. Whatever is in the proximity of your chatzar, it's yours. Whatever you allow yourself to be exposed to in life, whatever experiences you allow yourself to be a part of in life, or even the experiences you don't allow yourself to be a part of in life, but the experience is foisted upon you, everything we undergo in life, my chatzar is kona, and it leaves a dramatic impact on who and what I am. Incredible. We'll say, and this cuts both ways. On one hand, what it has to do is it has to sensitize us to the fact that we do have to be so careful what we allow ourselves to be exposed to. The influences we allow inside of our home, the influences we allow inside of our souls, the influences we allow inside of our eyes, inside of our heads. Chatzar shel adam kona shelo midaito. At the end of the day, your chatzar acquires everything. But sometimes things happen in life where I didn't choose circumstances and they were foisted upon me. It's important to understand that those circumstances also change me. But sometimes we look at ourselves and we're not the people we thought we would want to be in life. Okay, sorry. Had an alarm going off at 8:20 in the morning. I remember the last time I got up at 8:20 in the morning. Okay, sorry. Okay, good. Anyway, so we'll say, so therefore again, there are many times in life that halacha l'maisa, we go ahead and we have these experiences that fundamentally change us. And we wake up one day and we're different people. We're just different people. And it's important to understand that that's the concept of chatzar shel adam kona shelo midaito. Whatever experience comes in, whatever comes into your personalistic chatzar, whether it's the influences you allow, or even sometimes the circumstances that are foisted upon you, kona lo. Ultimately, again, they become part of who and what you are. So sometimes you can't choose the influences foisted upon you, but you absolutely can choose the things that you allow yourself to be exposed to. Incredible. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. So back to the Gemara. So I don't understand. So why is it, Rabbi Shmuel, that you have to be standing by the side of your chatzar in order for the chatzar to acquire on your behalf? But why? Chatzar shel adam kona shelo midaito. We'll say, watch this. It's really interesting. We'll say, when is that so? That is so ultimately, again, by a guarded chatzar. When does your chatzar have the ability to acquire on your behalf even without your knowledge? That's when it is a chatzar mishtamaris. Chatzar mishtamaris means a secure chatzar. Secure chatzar, right? Gated or somehow other guarded. Ava chatzar sheni mishtamaris. I will say, if the chatzar is not guarded, chatzar is not secured, then I omed b'tzad sadeu in, ilo lo. Then I will say, if you're standing there, then the chatzar can acquire on your behalf. If you're not standing there, the chatzar can't acquire on your behalf. So we'll say, so Rashi points out over here, first Rashi in the Gemara, Yomi b'tzad sadeu in, ta'achshav hi mishtameres al yado. So we'll say, this is interesting. What does your standing next to an unguarded chatzar do? What does it do? It makes it guarded. In other words, the act of standing next to your chatzar makes it a chatzar mishtamera. So I will say, let's pause here for just a moment, because this is actually a very profound halacha that has ramifications and implications in many areas. So essentially, the Gemara is teaching me is like this. Number one, there's something called the kinyan chatzar, right? Which means that my prop, which we know, we've dealt with this many, many years, my chatzar has the ability to go ahead and acquire on my behalf. Fine. Now, what the Gemara is suggesting is, chatzar, by the way, even has the ability to acquire even without your knowledge. When does the chatzar have the ability to acquire without your knowledge? Only when it's mishtameres. Only when it's guarded. Only when it's guarded. But if it's secured. But if it's not secured, I will say, then halacha l'maisa, you need to be standing there. Your act of standing next to the chatzar gives it essentially the din of a guarded chatzar. Now, what I want to point out is what really comes out of here is as follows. The truth is, you can say this is a case of knowledge, right? In other words, look at the Mishnah's case. I'm standing there, right? And and I want my chutzner to acquire the crippled deer, right, or to acquire the pigeons. So we'll say, so you see, das by itself is not enough. It requires das and proximity. Das and proximity. In order for a chutzner, really what it comes down to is like this. In order for a chutzner to acquire something, the chutzner has to be secure. If the chutzner is not secure, ultimately, again, it does not have the ability to acquire. Now, okay, so therefore, again, plugging this back into our Mishnah, therefore, again, Rabbi says in the name of Shmuel, I'm standing by my chutzner, which makes it a secure chutzner. I see the deer limping along or the pigeons that can't fly. I say, let my chutzner acquire it. Shalom Yisrael. We're done. But I said there's a tremendous musar on this also, that only a chutzner that is guarded has the ability to acquire. See, I will say, what does this mean? See, something comes into your chutzner, something beautiful. If you don't have the ability to retain it, right? If you don't, what does it mean that it's secure? Secure means that there's the possibility of retention. So if something beautiful comes into your chutzner, but there's no possibility of retention, then ultimately the chutzner can't acquire it. And it's an incredible metaphor in life as well. We'll say, so sometimes in life we have experiences of Kiddusha. What's the problem? What's the challenge with experiences of Kiddusha? Easy come, easy go. If you want your Kiddusha experiences to be meaningful, you must find a mechanism of retention. The chutzner, the personalistic chutzner, has to be mishtameres. Otherwise, you go through life and you have these beautiful experiences, and they just simply flow through me. I've quoted this a number of times. The Rebbe says that when a person has a moment of inspiration, I've quoted this many times, he says, what should you do? What should you do? He says, open up a chumash and read a pasuk. And he says, even if it's just Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar. Right? Why? Because like this, you've taken the spiritual energy and you've plugged it into something concrete. I've done something with it. I learned the pasuk of chumash. But if I don't do anything with it, if I don't find a way to retain it, if the chutzner is not mishtameres, then simply again stuff just passes through. Only a secure chutzner is able to acquire. Only if the personalistic chutzner has a mechanism of retention do the spiritual and holy experiences of life last. Otherwise, they just simply pass through. But say, this is why in general, whenever we have incredible and overwhelming spiritual experiences, the most important thing you could do is make a Kabbalah. Take something upon yourself. Right? Why? Because what does a Kabbalah do? Kabbalah says, I just had this experience. Here's how I'm going to plug it into my life. And again, it could be a very small Kabbalah. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic or heroic. But the smallest things, but if you don't take the energy and plug it into something concrete, just simply dissipates. The Gemara goes weiter. So we'll say, familiar with this concept, that if you have an unguarded chaser, unsecured chaser, that if you're standing next to it, that makes it a chaser mishtameres, and therefore it could acquire. But if you don't stand next to it, it doesn't make it into a chaser mishtameres. So we'll say a very interesting case here. This time we learned in a brayso. Listen to this. A person was standing in the city, Varmer, and he says, Yodea ani she'omer sheishli b'sada polim shechachuho lo yehi shechacha. So we'll say, now watch this. I'm standing in the city, and as I'm standing in the city, I say to myself, you know what? I remember that my workers left behind a bundle in the field, and I don't want it to be shechacha. Right? Because once remember again, the halacha is that whether you're harvesting your wheat or your workers are harvesting their wheat, if they leave something behind, it becomes right like at shechacha, depending on what they leave behind. So now what happens over here? In this case, I'm standing in the city, and I say, you know what? I know that my workers forgot something. I don't want it to be shechacha. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, Omer, sheyesh li bisada, shenachtiv shamidaiti, v'samachti ala polim sheviuhu, upolim shachu. So Rashi adds in a little bit over here of perish, important perish. I left a bundle in the field. I purposely must remember again, shechacha, if you just leave a bundle, but you know you left it there, that's not shechacha. Right? It's only shechacha if what? If you forget it, right? If you actively forget it. And we'll even see more parameters of this in just a moment. So in this case over here, I know that I left a bundle for my workers to gather in. And now I know my workers forgot it. So I say, I don't want this to be shechacha. I don't want it to be shichacha. So I'll say, so lo yeh shichacha. So I'll say, now, here's what's interesting. Now she adds in one more. What do you mean lo yeh shichacha? Now I'll say, so what I'm really saying is like this. In the event that I forget about it between now and the time that I get back to the field, I don't want it to be shichacha. So I'll say, see what's happened over here? I intentionally left the bundle in the field for the workers to take in. The workers forgot it. I know they forgot it. I say, I don't want it to be shichacha. What I'm really saying is, if I now forget about it, I don't want it to be shichacha. Okay? So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, lo yeshicha. Yachal lo yeshicha. You might have thought that this doesn't turn into shichacha if I forget it. Talmud Omar, v'shachachta omer basada. Therefore the pasuk says you forgot a bundle in the field. Basada v'shachachta v'lo ba'ir. Only if you forget it in the field, but not in the city. So the Gemara says that statement is inherently contradictory. Hagufa kasha. Amrit yachal lo yeshicha amahav shicha. Rabbi said the way that it's phrased is you might have thought that this is not shichacha, which is the Gemara telling us that it is shichacha. So Rabbi said, so just to be clear, the Gemara seems to be saying that in this case, I left a bundle in the field intentionally with the intention for my workers to go ahead and pick it up. I then go to the city. I hear the workers didn't pick it up. I say it shouldn't be shichacha, even in the event that I forget about it. The Gemara seems to indicate that if I forget about it, it is shichacha. And then the Gemara quotes a pasuk that seems to indicate that shichacha is only in the field and not in the city. So which one is it? So the Gemara says, Amrit lacho lo yeshicha amav shicha. So on one hand he said it shouldn't be shicha, but it's clear from here that it is shicha. V'nasiv le'gemara b'sada v'shachachta v'lo ba'ir. Yet we quote the pasuk that says shicha is only in the city. Sorry, only in the field and not in the city. Ama lo shicha. So it sounds like it's not shicha. So which one is it? Elalav hakir was what it means to say. Here we go. B'sada shachuach meikara hav'shicha. So most of the way it works is like this. It's actually really a fascinating halacha about shicha that's actually codified in the Rambam, Hilchos Matnos Aniyim Parakei Halacha Hey. Parakei Halacha Bey, sorry. So listen to this. Halacha Gomer. B'sada shachuach meikara hav'shicha. Most of the way it works is like this. In the field, if you forget produce there, and from the beginning you forgot about it, that's called shichacha. Zachar ulebasov shachuach. What happens if what? What happens if you first remember? In other words, supposed to say, remember me, sometimes you put something down, it's not forgotten, right? I'm coming back to it. So what happens if you first remembered it? Zachar ulebasov shachuach. And then ultimately again, then afterwards I forgot about it. Ain't shichacha. There's no shichacha. So we'll say what the Gemara is espousing is like this. The way shichacha works in the field is it's only called shichacha if what? If it's forgotten from the beginning. Right? In other words, that I harvested it and I just totally forgot about it. I bundled it and I just totally forgot about it. But if there was a moment where you remembered it, right, and then you subsequently forgot it, that's not called shichacha in the field. So the Gemara says, my time, what's the reason? Oh. They'll say, watch this. Why? Because since I'm standing in my field or by my field, therefore what am I saying? Because I remembered it for a moment, right? What happened? My chatzar acquired it on my behalf. See, though I subsequently forgot it, it doesn't matter because my field already acquired it on my behalf. So I just want to point out, pause here for just a second. Remember, why are we learning about shichacha? Remembering, I will say, what point are we trying to prove over here? We're trying to prove, Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel's point, that essentially when you have an unsecured chatzar, the way to secure it is how? Stand in proximity. Stand next to it. So the Gemara says, where do we find this concept? Here it is. Here it is, I will say. I'm gathering wheat in my field, right? The halacha is, if you forget a bundle of wheat, that bundle is called shichacha. It belongs to the poor. It belongs to the poor. Okay? So I will say, so now watch this. So now what happens? I'm bundling my wheat. I see that bundle. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come to it later. And then I forget about it. So I will say, what's the halacha? The halacha is, it's mine. It's mine, it's not shichacha. Why isn't it shichacha? It must be that since I was standing in the field together with this bundle, my chatzar acquired the bundle on my behalf. What do you see? And therefore, even if I subsequently forget it, it doesn't matter. It's already been acquired for me. So what do you see from here? That an unsecured chatzar, when the owner is standing there, suddenly becomes secure. Beautiful. Aval be'ir. So we're just going to finish out the shicha conversation. But if you're in the city, Rabbi say, if I'm standing in the city, interestingly enough, and I remember the bundle, but then I subsequently forgot about the bundle, it's shechacha. Right? Why? My taimo, the lese gabe de lazachile. It makes a lot of sense. Why? Because I'm not there. I'm not by the field. So because I'm not by the field, therefore again, my presence cannot activate the acquisitory power of the chatzar. Incredible, Rabbi say. So this is our raya to Rabbi Yehuda's concept that ultimately, Rabbi say. So again, there are two types of chatzar mishtameres. Right? A typical chatzar mishtameres could be like a gated chatzar. And then if a chatzar is physically unsecure, right? Physically unsecure. Insecure? Right, because an insecure chatzar sounds like he has like mental health issues, right? He's really not feeling good about himself, right? So it's like an unsecured chatzar. So again, my standing there, my physical presence, by definition, makes it secure, and that's what I both say. That's why again, if I'm in the city and I remember, oh, you know what? I left a bundle for the workers. The workers forgot it. I don't want it to be shicha. Then I forget it. If I forget it, it does become shicha. Why? Because since I'm in the city and not by my chatzar, I can't activate the acquisitory power of my chatzar through my personalistic proximity. By the way, what a sentence. What a sentence. Right? I can't say it. I can't say it again. The Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says, Mimai. So first of all, the Gemara says, I don't understand. How can you bring this as a proof? Dilma, Gezer Sakosafi, Tibisadan Havishecha, Birlana Havishecha. Maybe this is just all based on a pasuk. You're learning this out Alt Kinyan Chatzar, but maybe at the end of the day it's really just based ultimately again on the pasuk that in the sud, in the field, there is the ability to have shicha, and in the city there is no shicha. Amrikra lo sashav lakachto l'rabo shichas hayir. Therefore, the pasuk comes along to say, "Do not return to take it," and that includes even if there was shichacha in the city. Just to be clear, shichacha in the city means the owner's in the city and the owner forgot about the bundle. Okay, the Gemara says, no. Haimi boile lelav. No, because we'll say we need it to create a lav for the shechacha. Im keinei makra lo sikachenu. My lo sashuv. So we'll say if that's the case, let the pasuk say don't take it. What does it mean don't return? L'rabos shechachas ha'ir comes to include shechachas ha'ir. Most of the Gemara is suggesting maybe this distinction between shechacha in the city versus shechacha in the field doesn't have to do with the ability of personalistic proximity to activate acquisitory power of a chatzar, but rather, again, maybe it's just based on the pasuk. It's just based on the pasuk, to which the Gemara says, no. Vakati mi baile, no, because you need the pasuk for something else. Vakati mi baile lichidisnan shalafonav ein shechacha shalachrav yesh shechacha. Shabbat says shuba bal tashav. So this is interesting, no, because the pasuk is necessary to teach you something else, which is shechacha only applies to that which is in back of you, not to that which is in front of you. In other words, we'll say, let's say again, I forget about, we'll say sometimes in life, I forget about the things that are right in front of my face. Right? So what happens? So I'm in the field. I'm just, my mind is in a million different places. So what happens? So I see the bundle of wheat right in front of me. So, and I forget about it. So you might have thought that this would be shechcha. So the Gemara says, no. Well, so that's why the Torah uses lashon ultimately again of lo sashuv. Do not go back. Shechcha only applies to a bundle of wheat behind you, does not apply to a bundle of wheat in front of you. Zaklal. Kol shuba bal tashuv shechacha, kol sheno bal tashuv ein shechacha. I'll say it's beautiful. This is the rule. Anything for which you have to turn around is subject to the halachas of shechacha, but anything that you don't have to turn around is not subject to shechacha. So I'll say, but this could be a very, I would imagine that in the farm time, this could be a very shayach halacha. Right, the person's harvesting, a person's gathering all the bundles, there's a lot going on, and you just forget, about the bundles that are just sitting right in front of you. You might have thought there's shechacha. Lo sashuv teaches me only literally the stuff actually behind me is considered to be shechacha, but the stuff in front of me is not shechacha. Okay, but Rav Ashi Amakra Yihya l'rabos shechacha sayir. And Rav Ashi said the lashon of Yihya also comes to include shechachas ha'ir. So we'll say, we're done with shechacha for now. So I'll say, so again, just interestingly enough, the Gemara does have. So the reason we brought up this entire shechacha was really just to prove the point ultimately for Rabbi Yehuda, who said over in the name of Shmuel, that when you have an unsecured chatzar, the way to secure it ultimately again is with physical proximity. That if the owner is standing by it and therefore kind of looping it back to the Mishnah, that in the Mishnah's case, I'm standing by my chatzar, I see a crippled deer or pigeons that can't fly hobbling along, Reuven and Shimon are running after to acquire for themselves because it's hefker. I say, let my chatzar acquire it on my behalf. That works as long as what? I'm standing there. Shabbos says, so again, the Gemara seems to put a good argument out that halacha l'maisa, one can learn that out from Shechacha, although it's possible that the halachos of Shechacha themselves are just governed by the different drashas in the psukim. Okay, let's go ahead. Rabbi say, what's the takeaway from Shechacha? The takeaway from Shechacha, Rabbi say, is that here. Remember, we'll say it's all about these solos that we can isolate. Shechacha. If you remember one thing from Shechacha, this distinction between the city and the field is interesting. Shechacha only applies to stuff that is behind you. It doesn't apply to stuff that is in front of you. And I will say, what a ridiculously amazing Musar Haskell. I will say, what do you have to do with the stuff that is behind you? What do you have to do with it? Shechacha. I will say, how much time do we spend in life holding on to the pain of past failures? How much time do we spend in life reliving, if only I would have done this, I would have gone here, I would have taken this job, I would have, did all these different things. And we spend our life literally, again, looking in the rear view mirror. So I will say what's incredible is that the halacha is lo sashuv. You forgot the bundle? We'll say, we all forget bundles. We'll say, who amongst us in life doesn't have like that bundle? Oh my gosh, that was such a good bundle. How great my life could have been, or at least so I think. Right? I could have made this, I could have done this, I had this opportunity. Okay, the bundle's gone. The bundle's behind me. The bundle's behind me. Once the bundle is behind me, ultimately, lo sashuv. But say, that's shechacha. You got to forget about it, and you got to move forward. But here's the incredible part. There's no shechacha with the bundles in front of you. So I will say, here's the problem. If you spend too much time focusing on the bundles behind you, you will forget all about the beautiful bundles that are right in front of you. So the Ribono Shel Olam says, let the bundles of the past, let the bundles behind you, lo sashuv, let it go. My dehava hava, what was, move forward. The bundles in front of you, those are beautiful. Those are great. Don't lose out on those as well. Incredible. Okay, let's go weiter. Rav Ashi, sorry. So we'll say Ula said, Ula echoes the same idea as Rabbi Yehuda, namely that the chatzar works in the case of the Mishnah when I'm standing by the side of my chatzar. Okay, so we'll say, so again, we're just adding more people to Team Rabbi Yehuda. Right? So Ula's on board, Rabbi Barachana's on board, that the chatzar in the Mishnah my chatzar only works to acquire if I am standing right there. Rabbi Abba Ula, Rabbi Allah raised Kashla was a great case, My Rabbi Gamliel, Uzkinim Shaiban Besina, there was a story of Rabbi Gamliel and the elders who were traveling on a boat. I will say, I'm Rabbi Gamliel, so we'll say, so now watch this. So first I'll take a look. No, not yet. I'm Rabbi Gamliel. Iser Sha'ani Asid, Lamud, Nason Yoshua. So we'll say, okay, so let me tell you this a little bit outside. Look at Rashi. Iser Sha'ani Asid Lamud, Niskar Shalo Iser Masrosav, voch Shalo, Umir La Asra Masherosham. Okay, so we'll say, let me give you some context over here. The Rabbi Gamliel is on a boat with a bunch of Rabbanim. This might be a great idea for our next seal, by the way, right? A cruise, right? Probably not, right? It's Costa Rica presenting, right? The greatest of the... So now, what happened? So the Rabbanim are on a boat together. Rabbi Gamliel realized that he left his produce untithed. So Rabbi says, so what does he do? He quickly goes in and tithes it. Now, I want to just point out something incredibly amazing, that... there's a whole discussion. We're not going to do it together now. But Tosas, the bottom Tosas over here, has this entire discussion about why did Rabbi Gamliel have to essentially dole out tithes on the boat? And remember, again, there's a couple of questions. Number one, why did he have to tithe everything? Number two, why did he have to tithe in this type of specific way? So Tosfos first wants to say, well, because Rabbi Gamliel was concerned that there's a chazaka, there's a presumption that a Talmid Chacham does not leave untithed produce. So Tosfos brings down, the only problem with that is that's true, but that refers to his produce after he dies. That if you find, in other words, if you find in the estate of a Talmid Chacham produce, we assume that it was tithed. But Rabbi was going on a boat journey, not that for 14 years. He was going for some amount. Tosfos has a whole arichos on this, but I just want to point out something absolutely amazing, even though I'm not going to give you the depth of it. Tosfos says, this situation happened in a leap year, in an Adar days. I'm sorry. I feel like I should drop the mic, right? So it happened in a leap year. So again, you'll take a look in Tosfos. Tosfos has a whole arichos about this, but he says this whole episode centers around a leap year. I would say just absolutely trouble. I would say sometimes, like we kind of wonder to ourselves, like, all right, I'm a little bit tired. What am I doing? What am I doing? Somebody just came over to me last night and went on a whole. You ever meet the anti-Daf Yomi people? What are the anti-Daf Yomi people? Can't quite figure that out. Interesting breed of people. You would think that we're learning New Testament daily, New Testament Yomi. Like it's Torah. It's not like we're learning Luke or something. I don't know. It's he was going you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know this. I said, you're right. In general, I don't know what I'm talking about. I agree. Okay, I'll be macabre at that point. It was the whole thing. I'll say, sometimes when people come off, I always admire very, and inherently I'm not a confident person. So I always admire very confident people who absolutely 1000% believe every single thing that they're saying. So this guy literally gave me a mishaberach about Daf Yomi on Motzei Shabbos. And it rattles you a little bit. You think to yourself, I don't know, so maybe, so it's about different learning programs. We learn a lot slower and a lot more methodically and a lot this. I was thinking about it a little bit. I was, and I'll tell you last night, then I'm home last night preparing the daf, and I saw this Tosfos, and I said, Ibn Shalom, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the kiss. Thank you for the hug. Thank you for the embrace. Thank you for the chizuk. You're right. You're absolutely right. Maybe there are other programs where you can learn a little bit slower, right? And again, you certainly have a lot more time for chazara. And again, it's not an either or. It's really not an either or. We'll have to think about it because it was macabre what this person said. Maybe instituting another program as well, in addition to Amud Yomi. So again, there is a place, but I would say there's nothing that compares with swimming through Shas. It's not the doggy paddle, right? It's not the doggy paddle. Mamish, we are taking major strokes every single day. And you're right. Sometimes we have to give up a little bit on the depth. But when you learn a Gemara about a leap year on Rosh Chodesh Adar base, it doesn't get better than this in life. It's the kiss of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in any event, so watch this. So says Aharon Yosef, Shabbos says, Rabbi Gamliel said, I'm going to separate 1/10. He was referring over here to Meiser Rishon. He was giving to Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Yoshua Bar Chanina was a Levi. So I'm going to give my Meiser Rishon to Yoshua ben Chananya, Amud Beis, Umakama Muskalo. And also the area upon which, the land upon which the Meiser is situated, I'm going to rent to him. So he was giving him both produce and land. We'll say then there's another 10th, because we'll say it was a Meiser on a year. I'm going to give the additional 10th that I'm going to give out. Akiva ben Yosef. I'm giving to Akiva ben Yosef. We'll say, who's Akiva ben Yosef? Rabbi Akiva. We'll say, I just want to point out, by the way, can you imagine being on this boat? Can you imagine being on this boat? Rabbi Gamliel, I will say, and you hear the way he referred, he's not being disparaging. Rabbi Gamliel was the ranking sage. See, he calls Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya Yoshua, and he calls Rabbi Akiva. Can you imagine, right? What it would have been like to be on this boat with these Rabbanim? So again, he says, I'm going to give the Ma'aseh to Rabbi Akiva. Kadesh Shishkolani, and I will say, Rabbi Akiva was the Gabbai Tzedakah. So he wasn't giving the Meiser Ani to Rabbi Akiva. Well, he was, but he was giving it to Rabbi Akiva to dispense to the Aniyim. And the area upon which the Meiser Ani is situated is also given to Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Shmuel says, one second. So now, sounds like what happened over here. He gave them the tithes and he gave them the land, right? The karka. What was the point of the karka? What was the point of the karka? Kinyan Chatzar. They both say, what's the problem? I don't understand. They're on a boat, right? That's not a metaphor, right? They're on a boat, right? They're literally on a boat, which means that they're not standing by the chatzar. Well, we just said that in order for a chatzar to acquire, ultimately, again, the person has to be standing by the side of the chatzar. So this is a kasha on Ula, kasha on Rabbi Huda, kasha on all the previous opinions. So the Gemara says, no. So the Gemara was listening to this. So he said to him, Dami haimi rabbanan, kidalo gamri inchi shmaita. All right, so we'll say, so here it gets a little testy over here. Right? So Rabbi Abba was the one who asked this question on Ula. Ula said, Rabbi Abba, it's clear that you have not showed up one day to the base medrash. Right? So I'll say they will say, I've said this often, it's always interesting, like on one hand, the teacher, you always want to say every single question, excellent question. He'll say, so it could be that that's good for younger children to build up self-esteem. As we get older, one of the most important skill sets that we have to develop is the ability to think before we speak. Right? It's a muscle that we have to really exercise as often as possible. And so I'll say, so sometimes you see it throughout the Gemara that when someone asks a question that was felt to be like just a foolish question, the response is sharp and biting. It's not meant to insult and it's not meant to degrade. It's meant to create a sense of responsibility. Like you're a Talmud Chacham. And as a Talmud Chacham, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're thinking before you speak. So Ula says, that's right, Barachama, Amarle, Dami Hayish Baruch Lo Gamishmaita, Kiasla Surah, Amarle Yachim Ula, this is what Ula said, Vahachi Os Vese, Amarle Humir Abanad Gamdiel, Metantali Agav Mikar Kai Hikna Lahem. I will say it wasn't Kinyan Chatzar. It was Kinyan Agav. Wow. Okay, I will say. So essentially, the Gemara says is like this: you're mixing up two kinyanim. So I will say, we thought that what was happening over here. We thought that what was occurring was like this: that Rabbi Gamliel was, let's say, giving the tithes to Rabbi Yeshua, to Rabbi Akiva, and what he was doing was he was giving them land, chatzar, and therefore again acquire the chatzar and acquire the produce or the tithe through kinyan chatzar. That's not what was happening. It wasn't kinyan chatzar. We'll say, what was it? It was kinyan agav. We'll say, what's kinyan agav? Agav literally means on the back of. Kinyan agav means you could acquire A, and by acquiring A, you acquire B on the back of that item. So I'll say, so in this case over here, what Rabbi Gamliel is really doing is, he's giving them ownership on land. And the halacha is that when you acquire land, real property, you could acquire metaltalim on the back of, or by dint of that real property, but it's not kinyan chatzar. It's even though it sounds similar, it's two different mechanistic frameworks. Incredible. Rabbi Zera kibla, Rabbi Abba lo kibla. Rabbi Zera accepted this interpretation. Rabbi Abba did not. Amar Rabba, Shapir Avad lo kibla. Truth is, it's good that Rabbi Abba did not accept this explanation. You know why? V'chi lo haya lahem sudar liknos Ilana b'chalipin. Because it doesn't make any sense. We'll say it doesn't make any sense. Why would Rabbi Gamliel be makna the produce to them, the tithes to them, through agav? In other words, why the need for karka? There's a much easier mechanism. What's the much easier mechanism? So chalipin. We just learned about chalipin last week, right? What's chalipin? Again, we do this by achasana, we do it by chametz. Let's just go with the classic idea that what happens, right? The makna, let's say the person selling the object goes ahead and, or I should say, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter, right? Let's say party A, because it's a machlokes, whether or not to use kilev shel makna, kilev shel kona. But the idea is Rabbi Gamliel could have just given them like a handkerchief, let them lift up a handkerchief, and by acquiring the handkerchief, what do they acquire? They acquire ultimately, again, the produce. What do you have to start getting into karka? Why do you have to start going ahead and getting into? In other words, the fact that he used karka, the Gemara wants to suggest, can't be agav, because if you're using agav, just use chalipin. It must have been that he was using karka as a form of chatzar. If he's using karka as a form of chatzar, that shows that chatzar works even if what? even if the owner is not present. Ela tovas hana eina mamon liknos imen bechalipin. Hachanami tovas hana eina mamon liknos al gabe karka. Shabbos say this is interesting. I'm sorry. Before we get to that, Shabbos say here's the difference. Chalipin is fascinating. Chalipin only works when you are acquiring or giving over an item of value. Rabbi say, remember again, Rabbi Gamliel has these tithes. Rabbi say, who owns the tithes? Who owns the tithes? Who owns the tithes? So ultimately, again, remember, so if it's Meiser Rishon, the Levi owns that. Meiser Ani, the Ani owns that. Right? What does Rabbi Gamliel have? Rabbi Gamliel has Tovas Hana. What's Tovas Hana? Tovas Hana is the right to give the tithes to whoever you want. I will say that is not considered enough of a financial benefit to give over through Kinyan Chalipin. Kinyan Chalipin. Right? Isn't that incredible? Kinyan Chalipin requires an exchange of something that has an actual financial value. Tovas Hana does not have enough of a financial value to be activated or ultimately to be transferred through Chalipin. Incredible. So the Gemara says, so I want to say the same thing. So we'll say, the same thing. Maybe again, Tovas Hana also doesn't have the ability to be transferred over Agav Karka. V'lohi. Here's the difference. Matnos kuna nesina ksibbo. So when it comes to Matnos kuna, the Torah uses Lashon nesina, giving over. Chalipin derech mekach umemkarhu. So we'll say Chalipin is a mechanism that is used ultimately again for mekach umemkar, for commercial transactions, sales. Metalpin agav mikarka nesina alimtihi. So we'll say this is very interesting. By matnos kahuna, the lashon is nesina, right? You have to give it over. We'll say for giving something over, agav karka works. Karka will work. For Chalipin, I will say Chalipin is a financial transaction, and therefore ultimately again it requires an item of value. So I will say, so therefore again the Gemara successfully neutralizes that objection. Rapapa says, Das acheres makna osan shiny. Okay, so Rapapa introduces now something totally different. Rapapa says it's not a fair comparison. We'll say in the case of Rabbi Gamliel is actively conveying ownership of something to someone else. We'll say, I just want to point out, if you notice again, what's happening in our Mishnah, right, where this whole discussion started. In this whole Mishnah, I am trying to acquire something from what? From Hefker. Right? So I'm trying to use my chotzer to acquire something from Hefker. In the Rabbi Gamliel case, Rabbi Gamliel is actively trying to convey something, ownership to another party. So our Papa says, Das acheres makna osan, shiny. When you have one party actively transferring to another party, Rabbi say, Kinyan Chatzar could work even if what? Even if the owner of the Chatzar is not present. Incredible. So the Gemara says, from where do you know that? So the Gemara says, Disnan, Ra Osan Ratzin Achar HaMetziah. Right? What did our Mishnah say? Right? I'm standing by my Chatzar. I say Reuven and Shimon running after the deer, running after the pigeons. Right? And Rabbi Yirmiyah said in Yochanan, assuming that I could also run after these items and catch up with them. So I'll say, so they qualify this ruling saying that when I see these objects running through, or these animals running through my chutzar, I could acquire it as long as I could technically run after them and catch up to it. What happens if it was a matana? It wasn't after. Somebody was conveying ownership of something to me. So Kibla Minei Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana Afapi Sharat Sacharin Ve'ein Magian. So what they said in that case, halacha l'maisa, even if you couldn't catch up with the deer with the pigeons, you would still acquire it. My time, but what's the reason? Lad mishum dedas acheres makna usan. It must be because of Osai that there's a difference ultimately again when someone else is conveying ownership to you. So Osai, so we're gonna pause over here. We're gonna pause over here for now. So Osai, so I just want to point out to you what the Gemara ended up with, so just to kind of trace the progression. So we started out with the Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah said that halacha l'maisa, I'm standing by my chutzar, I see a crippled deer or pigeons that can't fly, and I see people running after it to acquire it because it's hefker. I say, hey, I want that. Let my chatzar acquire it. What does the Mishnah say? It works. Rabbi Huda says the name of Shmuel qualifies that. When does it work? As long as I'm standing there. My personalistic proximity ultimately again concretizes and solidifies the acquisitory capability of my chatzar. Ula backs that up. There's all but Shula that backs that up. We brought up the case of Shikha to back up that concept as well. we're left with a problem though with Rabbi Gamliel case, because Rabbi Gamliel is on a boat, and Rabbi Gamliel is giving over tithes, right? Rabbi Shlomo Chananya, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Ani to Rabbi Akiva, and he's giving it to them through Kinyan Chatzar. But they're not standing by the field. To which the Gemara introduces us to another new fact, which is the only time that you require personalistic proximity to your chatzar to acquire is when the chatzar is acquiring from hefker. But if someone else is giving you something, then your chatzar has the ability to acquire on your behalf, even if you're not there. And I will say, just what's the logic of that? It's very simple. The logic is like this. When I am acquiring something from hefker, there's nothing pushing that object into my domain. As such, I need a greater pull in order to make it mine. When someone is conveying something to me, I both say there's two forces. What are the forces? Someone's pushing it in my direction, and I'm pulling it in my direction. Because there are those two forces, therefore the Gemara wants to posit, Kinyan Chatzar could work in that case, even if what? Even if I'm not standing there. I always say, so we'll stop over here for today. We're going to pick up with this idea tomorrow. We'll say, I'm going to be in Eretz Hashem. I'm hoping leave for Eretz Yisroel time, and I hope to be remote with you this week in Eretz Hashem. For sure tomorrow. Keep you posted about the rest of the week as well, but it is my goal. This Gemara is too good. I'm on a selfish level. So we'll look forward to Eretz Yisroel with all of you. Shkoyach.